I wasn't trying to catch her. That's the first thing I told myself. It was a Wednesday evening, grey, dull, the kind where the rain never really comes but hangs in the air like something waiting to be felt. Brooke was in the kitchen, moving around like she always did when she didn't want to talk, cutting vegetables too loud, closing drawers harder than necessary. Her phone was face down on the counter. That, too, was a habit now. I was on the couch, nursing a low-grade headache and trying to pretend the house didn't feel colder than usual. We hadn't argued. Not exactly. But there was something under the surface, a tightness in the air, the kind you only notice when it's been around for too long. Then I heard it, the soft ding from her iPad in the hallway. It was buried under a stack of magazines, half forgotten. I wouldn't have even noticed if I hadn't dropped the TV remote and reached for it at the same time. A preview flashed across the screen. A message. Jay, same hotel? Room 414 again? I froze. The world didn't shatter in that moment. Not yet. It paused. I stared at the message, waiting for it to disappear. But it didn't. The device was unlocked. The screen open. The iMessage thread, sitting there in full view like it belonged to me. I told myself not to look, but my hand moved before the rest of me could object. I opened the app. The thread was long, full of coded names, inside jokes, suggestive emojis. He called her B. She called him J. And they had dates, timestamps, hotel names, real plans. This wasn't a flirtation. It was a pattern. One entry stood out. I moved the other account. He won't notice. He never checks that stuff. My blood ran cold. They weren't just sneaking around. They were planning something. And Brooke wasn't just cheating. She was plotting. I scrolled further. Messages going back 6 months. Pictures. Voice notes. Digital receipts for hotel rooms. One for a wine tasting event she claimed was a work seminar. That's when it hit me. She hadn't changed her Apple ID password. All our devices were still synced from years ago, back when trust didn't need to be password protected. She'd forgotten, or maybe she never expected me to notice, or care. I locked the iPad. My hands were shaking. In the kitchen she was humming now, some song I didn't recognize. She didn't know. Not yet. I stared at her for a long moment. She looked the same soft jawline, the same hair she always said she'd cut and never did. But she wasn't the same. And suddenly, neither was I. I didn't know what to do next. Scream? Confront her? Pack a bag? But I knew one thing. This wasn't going to end tonight. I'd built this life, brick by brick, mortgage by mortgage, and I wasn't about to let it collapse under someone else's lies. Not without knowing the full story first. So I picked up my own phone. Not to call her, but to start my own investigation. One she wouldn't see coming. That night, I barely slept. Brooke lay beside me, turned to the wall, her breathing soft and even, innocent, if I hadn't seen what I saw. But I had. And once you've read messages meant for someone else, it changes the way silence feels. By morning, my thoughts were already racing. I opened the Notes app on my phone and typed the name of the hotel from the text. Elder Ridge Inn, room 414. I knew the place. Classy. Discreet. The kind of spot realtors booked when they wanted to impress a client. The kind of place Brooke had no reason to visit. At least not professionally. I thought back to the wine tasting she mentioned 3 weeks ago. She'd said it casually, in that half-distracted tone she used when she didn't want me asking follow-up questions. It's one of those networking things, babe. All female entrepreneurs. Blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't be into it. I'd nodded, trusted her. Because that's what I did. That's what I used to do. But now, I had a date, March 22nd. I scrolled through my credit card transactions. Nothing unusual on mine. But then I remembered she had her own business card, one we both had access to, but she rarely used. I logged into the shared business account. There it was. 0322. Elder Ridge Inn. $328.76. And beside it, in the notes, client lunch and follow-up. Client lunch in room 414. I closed my eyes and leaned back in the chair. My hands were already typing a search for the hotel's number. I paused. No, not yet. If I called, I might tip her off, and I needed more than suspicion. I needed certainty, documentation, something that couldn't be explained away with a lie and a smile. So I dug deeper. I opened our shared Google Calendar. She had once linked hers with mine to stay synced. Ironically, it was still connected. March 22nd showed a block from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. titled Vision Board Event. I clicked on it. No location, no attendees, just a color-coded lie. The deeper I went, the more layers I found. Excuses, phantom appointments, casual mentions that suddenly felt loaded. A Pilates instructor had cancelled 5 times this month. But somehow Brooke still left the house. Her sister's birthday dinner had never shown up in any family photos online. And her late-night grocery runs. There were receipts in the trash from a sushi place 20 miles away. I didn't want to be paranoid. But I wasn't crazy either. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a blueprint for exit. Financial records, location tracking, false calendar entries. She was preparing for something. Maybe to leave, maybe to take what I'd spent years building. Jay was in on it. I didn't know who he was yet, but I would. I scrolled back through the iPad, this time screen recording every message, every image, every timestamp. I sent it all to a private email I created that morning, under a name she'd never recognize. This wasn't about confrontation anymore. This was about control. Control over the story. Control over my future. And most of all, control over the timing. Because Brooke thought I was still asleep, still blind, but I was wide awake now, and watching. It started with a blurry photo. Late one night while Brooke was in the shower, I quietly opened the iPad again. My hands didn't even shake this time. I was past the guilt. I needed answers. In the message thread with Jay buried between emojis and suggestive innuendo, I found a grainy picture. Brooke had taken it from inside a car, clearly hers. The dashboard was familiar, but the man sitting in the passenger seat was not. He was maybe mid-30s, strong jawline, baseball cap pulled low, the kind of smile you can't fake, the kind you don't show just anyone. Underneath the photo she had written, "He's getting bolder, but I kind of like it." I stared at the man's face. It was just clear enough to recognize if I saw him in person, but not enough for a reverse image search. Still, something about him nagged at me, the shape of his jaw, the logo on his shirt. I enlarged the photo. Jay's garage. That's what the embroidery said. My stomach turned. A month ago, Brooke had mentioned she had to take her car in, said it was making a weird clicking noise. I offered to go with her. She told me not to worry. "It's nothing, babe. Just a small shop down near Riverstone. Quick fix." Now I remembered. That same night she came home late. Hair washed, nails redone. Not a smudge of oil or sweat in sight. She'd called him a stranger then, but he wasn't. He was the mechanic, Jay. I picked up my laptop and searched Jay's garage, Riverstone, Virginia. It popped up immediately. 5 stars. Locally owned. The website had a small about page. No photo, just a brief blurb. I checked the business license record next. Took 2 minutes to find. Owner Jason C. Turner, J. Of course. I opened Facebook, typed in the name. There he was. Same man from the photo, smiling at a ribbon-cutting ceremony in front of the garage. Same hat, same logo. A few posts about classic cars. One tagged photo with a woman. Not Brooke. Probably a friend. Maybe a sister. I didn't care. I clicked save. Now I had a full name. Jason Turner. I sat back in my chair and exhaled slowly, like I'd just placed the final piece in a jigsaw puzzle. But the picture it revealed wasn't satisfying. It was humiliating. Brooke didn't fall for a coworker. She wasn't swept away by a corporate executive or a charming neighbor. She was sleeping with her mechanic. A man I never would have suspected. A man who, a month ago, I would have nodded to at a red light and thought nothing of. It was never about charm. It was about secrecy. Jay offered her a world I couldn't enter. He existed off the grid. No shared bank statements. No overlapping circles. No witnesses. Smart, but not smart enough, because now I knew his name, his face, his business, and that meant I had leverage. I wasn't going to expose them, not yet. I needed them to keep moving, keep texting, keep digging their own grave. The more they thought I was asleep at the wheel, the more reckless they'd become. I closed the iPad and walked into the kitchen. Brooke was pouring wine. She looked up, smiled faintly, and said, "Rough day." I nodded. "You have no idea." The next day, Brooke left early. She said she was meeting a client across town. I didn't ask questions, didn't give her any reason to think I suspected a thing. I just kissed her on the cheek, told her to drive safe, and watched her pull away. The moment her taillights disappeared, I grabbed my laptop. If Brooke was planning to leave me, she'd need more than just a secret lover. She'd need cash, leverage, a clean exit. And if there was one thing I'd learned in 12 years of marriage, it was this: Brooke never did anything halfway. I logged into our joint banking portal. Everything looked normal at first glance. Mortgage payments, groceries, a few Amazon orders I didn't recognize. But then I noticed something odd. A $2,500 wire transfer from her side business account to a holding account under a name I didn't recognize. Wellington Financial Services. The description: retainer, legal consultation. Legal. I opened a new tab and searched the firm. Wellington Financial wasn't a law office. It was a divorce-focused wealth protection firm. Their slogan said it all: secure your future, even if your spouse doesn't know you're planning to. My throat went dry. She was hiding money, quietly moving assets, probably under the advice of someone who specialized in helping spouses walk away with everything. I checked the timeline. The transfer was made 2 weeks ago, right around the same time she booked the Elder Ridge Hotel. I stood up, restless, my thoughts racing. Was she trying to set me up? Maybe make it look like I had cheated? Or was she just trying to empty out what she could before I noticed? Either way, I needed documentation, receipts, logs, evidence. So I opened a shared spreadsheet we used for budgeting, a simple Excel file we'd updated every month for years. Brooke hadn't touched it since January. I duplicated it, renamed it something boring, hid it in a folder within a folder within another folder. Then I started filling it with everything I was finding: transfer dates, hotel invoices, calendar lies, text screenshots, business payments to Jay's garage. It was ugly, but it was clear. This wasn't infidelity. It was strategy. At noon, I called the Elder Ridge Inn from a burner app on my phone. I used a voice that was just a touch panicked, pretended to be Brooke's assistant, said I'd misplaced a hotel key and was hoping to confirm the name on a past reservation. The desk clerk hesitated. "I'm sorry, sir. I can't release guest names without authorization. What if I gave you the reservation number?" I said quickly. Silence. Then, "If you have that, I can confirm details." I took a wild guess. Based on the dates and the payment amount, I threw out a number. #2714. Another pause. "Yes, that reservation was under Brooke Callahan. Can I help you further?" I didn't push. I didn't need to. I had what I came for. Proof. She'd used her full name. She hadn't even bothered with a fake one. The arrogance of it made me clench my jaw. She thought I'd never look. She thought I'd never dig. But I was just getting started. I sat down with a glass of water, heart pounding. Not with heartbreak, that had already passed. Now it was something sharper. Purpose. I opened the spreadsheet and typed the next line. Confirmed hotel booking in her name. Same date as fake calendar entry. Room 414. Then I saved everything to an encrypted flash drive and locked it in my office drawer. This was no longer about staying married. It was about not being destroyed in the process. The plan was simple. Show up, smile, eat cake, and keep pretending I was still the clueless husband. It was Brooke's niece's birthday, a small gathering at her sister Amelia's house just outside town. I'd gone to these things a dozen times over the years. Same snacks, same conversations, same overly cheerful toasts. Only this time, I wasn't really there to celebrate. I was watching. More importantly, I was watching them. Brooke and Amelia, because something about Amelia had been bothering me for weeks. She called less, took longer to reply to texts. And when we did speak, her tone was cautious, polite but cold, like someone holding a glass they knew was about to break. I didn't think much of it at first. Families get busy. But now, I wondered if she knew something, or worse, if she knew everything. We arrived fashionably late. Brooke looked flawless, red lips, perfect hair, not a single sign that she was living a double life. She even brought a gift, some overpriced art set for the kid, tagged us from both of us. I barely said a word, just smiled, until Amelia greeted us at the door, and I saw the smile. It was small, tight, not unfriendly, but measured. She hugged Brooke quickly, then me. But when she pulled away, she wouldn't meet my eyes. She kept fidgeting with the bracelet on her wrist. That same nervous habit she had when she was lying as a kid. I filed it away. Inside, everything was loud and chaotic. Kids running, adults gossiping in the kitchen. I poured myself a drink and stayed near the hallway, letting the noise blur around me. Then I overheard it. From behind the half-closed laundry room door, Brooke's voice, whispering. I told him it was a women's event. He didn't ask questions. A pause. Then Amelia, quieter. Brooke, this is going too far. What if he finds out? Brooke laughed. He still thinks I'm at Pilates half the time. Trust me, he won't catch on. That was it. I stepped away, calm on the outside, burning on the inside. I didn't confront them. Instead, I waited for the cake to be cut, made small talk, nodded at jokes I didn't hear. And then just before we left, I did something I knew would rattle her. I hugged Amelia a little longer than usual. Then I leaned in and whispered, "Funny how smiles give more away than words ever do." She stiffened. Brooke didn't notice. She was too busy scrolling through her phone, probably texting Jay. On the way home, she asked if I had fun. I said yes, and I meant it. Because now I knew her sister wasn't just covering for her. She was in on it. Maybe not actively, but enough to lie, enough to look the other way. That meant Brooke had backup. But now, so did I. The storm didn't hit until after midnight. Rain smacked against the windows in heavy, slanted sheets, the wind howling like it had something personal against the house. Brooke had already gone to bed. I stayed in the den, staring at a blank television screen and thinking about all the things I couldn't unsee. I didn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., the wind knocked over a planter on the back deck. The crash jolted me upright, heart pounding like I'd been caught. I stepped outside to fix it, barefoot and angry, not at the storm, but at myself. I used to be the kind of man who trusted what he saw. Now, I couldn't trust the person I'd built a life with. When I came back inside, wet and shivering, something caught my eye. A small leather pouch on the floor, just by the edge of the entry table. Brooke's bag must have tipped over when she rushed in earlier that night. The pouch was half unzipped. Inside was a spare key. Not to our house, not to her car, to a room, a hotel key card. I picked it up slowly, my fingers trembling. Printed faintly in silver at the top corner. Elder Ridge Inn, room 512. That wasn't the same room number I'd seen before in the messages. That was new, a different visit, more recent. She'd said she was going to visit her aunt that day, even posted a story on Instagram of her driving through the countryside. I remember because I replied to it with a heart emoji, like a fool. But now I had something real, physical, tangible. This wasn't screenshots or suspicion. This was a forgotten token of betrayal, left like a breadcrumb. I stood there, soaked, holding that key like it might burn a hole through my skin. She'd been getting bolder, or maybe careless. That's how it always starts when liars think no one's watching. They get sloppy, and sloppy makes them vulnerable. I dried off, placed the keycard into an envelope, and tucked it into the back of the drawer where I kept our mortgage documents. Then I sat down and opened the encrypted flash drive again. The evidence folder had grown. Photos, text, bank transfers, calendar entries. A new note. Room 512, key found 5/13. Her alibi was visiting Aunt Clara. I saved the file, exhaled and leaned back. She didn't know it yet, but every step she took to build her exit was building my case instead. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about who would win the war that neither of us had declared, but both of us were fighting. It started with a voicemail. I hadn't expected anything unusual that day. It was early June, and the air was thick with that kind of summer heat that makes everything feel slower, heavier. Brooke was out running errands, or so she claimed. I was in the garage, organizing some old boxes, when my phone buzzed, a voicemail. From a number I didn't recognize. I played it on speaker. "Good afternoon, Mr. Callahan. This is Rachel Forbes, from the firm of Elliott & Knox. I'm calling on behalf of my client, Mrs. Brooke Callahan, regarding preliminary questions about a possible separation. Nothing urgent at this stage. Please feel free to have your representation return the call at their convenience." I didn't move, didn't breathe. For a moment I thought I'd misheard. But no, she'd done it. She hadn't even told me. She went straight to a lawyer behind my back, while I was making dinner, paying bills. Pretending to be okay, I replayed the message, twice. Her name rang out like a death sentence, every time. Brooke Callahan. Possible separation, not divorce. Not yet, but she'd laid the first brick. And now it was my turn. I didn't have a lawyer. Not yet, but I had a friend, Garrett, who'd worked in family law before switching to corporate litigation. We hadn't spoken in a year, but I texted him one line, "Need to talk, it's serious." He called me 5 minutes later. By nightfall, I was sitting in his office downtown, a manila folder full of printed screenshots and documents in my lap. He didn't ask how I'd gotten them. He just listened. When I finished, Garrett leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "She's setting up the play. If you hadn't found this stuff, she might have blindsided you." I nodded. He continued. "The financial transfers, the alternate accounts, that hotel. She's been building a case to make you look distracted, negligent, maybe even emotionally distant. If you'd reacted emotionally, stormed out, made threats, she could have used it. But I hadn't. Because I'd known. Because I'd watched." I handed him the envelope, with the hotel keycard. His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Nice touch," he muttered. "Physical evidence. And the lawyer calling first. That's them testing the water, fishing for a reaction. So what do I do?" I asked. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You don't do anything. Not yet. You keep pretending. Keep playing the role. Let her keep digging. And when she thinks she's ready to strike." He tapped the folder. We hit back. It was the first time I didn't feel helpless since this began. Brooke thought she was ahead of me, but she didn't know I'd already mapped out her path. She thought I'd crumble when the lawyer called. Instead, I smiled. Because the only thing more dangerous than a man who's been betrayed is one who's patient. It was Brooke's idea. A dinner party. "Just a few friends," she said. "Nothing big. We could use some normal," she added without looking up from her phone. I agreed, of course. Smiled. Played the part. It was 2 weeks after the voicemail. She still didn't know I'd heard it. Still didn't know I'd lawyered up. She thought I was clueless, distracted, maybe even guilty for being distant. A narrative she'd quietly started planting with her friends. Let her. The night arrived. Our house was spotless. Brooke wore her best dress. Not the red one she wore for me years ago, but a black one I hadn't seen before. She didn't wear red anymore. The guests trickled in. Laughter echoed through the house. Clinks of wine glasses, soft jazz humming under the surface. I played the host with precision. Poured drinks, served appetizers, told a few harmless stories. But I was watching. Not the guests, Brooke. And I wasn't the only one. Amelia was there too. Her sister, still fidgety, still guarded. She avoided my eyes, like they held a mirror. Brooke floated around the room. All charm and lightness. But every now and then, she'd glance down at her phone, with a flicker of something else. Urgency. Nervousness. At 8:43 p.m., I watched her sneak into the hallway. I gave it 30 seconds. Then followed. She was just finishing a text. I stepped closer, quiet as breath. "Jay, I can't talk now. He's here. Everyone's here. I'll call later." I cleared my throat. She nearly dropped the phone. "Hey," I said casually. "Everything all right?" She spun around. Too fast. Too guilty. Yeah, just checking on my mom. She's not feeling well." "I'll lie." I nodded slowly. "Hope she feels better." We returned to the party, but the air had shifted. She knew I'd seen something, and she didn't know what. That uncertainty, it rattled her. It got worse when Garrett and his wife arrived late. Brooke didn't know Garrett was my lawyer. She just thought he was a friend. But Garrett played the game flawlessly, shaking her hand, complimenting the house, sipping his drink, as if he wasn't building a legal fortress behind the scenes. At one point, he leaned toward me during dinner and whispered, "She's twitchy. She knows something's coming." I smiled and raised my glass. To everyone else, it looked like gratitude, but to Brooke, it was a warning. She tried to salvage the night with a toast, thanked everyone for coming, talked about renewing connections and cherishing the people who matter. The words tasted like acid in my ears. After dessert, the guests started leaving. Brooke walked them to the door with her perfect smile, but her eyes kept flicking back to me. Something had shifted. She didn't know when it happened, but she wasn't in control anymore, and that terrified her. The shift happened slowly. Over the next few days, Brooke grew quieter, not the kind of silence born from contentment, but the silence of calculation, of someone reworking a plan they thought was perfect, now unsure if they were 2 steps ahead or 1 behind. She asked odd questions at dinner. "Everything good at work? You've been calm lately? Is everything okay?" I kept my answers short, let her wonder. Then, one morning as I made coffee, she walked in with her arms folded and said, "I got a message from my lawyer. They said your attorney called." I didn't flinch. I poured the coffee, stirred it once, then looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Yeah, I figured it was time we both had someone in our corner." There it was, that flicker in her expression. Not anger, not fear, recognition. The moment she realized I knew, and had known for a long time, she opened her mouth, maybe to deny it, maybe to spin it, but I raised a hand gently and said, "Don't, not now. Not when we both know how this ends." She stood there, frozen, like someone trying to decide whether to run or apologize. She did neither, just turned around and left the room. And I knew she'd never be back the same way again. Chapter 10. 1 email, 2 signatures, and a clean exit. It took 2 more weeks to wrap it all up. Garrett moved quickly. Calculated, quiet. We kept everything out of court, because I had the leverage, and Brooke knew it. We met once in person, neutral ground. Her lawyer present. Mine beside me. No shouting, no tears, just facts. I slid a folder across the table. Printouts of the messages, the booking confirmations, the hidden transfers, the hotel keycard. Brooke didn't look at me. She just signed. We agreed on a clean split. She'd walk away with her car, her business, and nothing else. The house stayed with me. So did the retirement account. She thought I'd never protect in time. There was no alimony, no drawn-out drama, just a quiet end to a loud betrayal. The final signature came via DocuSign. I got the confirmation email at 3:12 p.m. on a Thursday. The subject line read, "Your document has been completed." That was it. 12 years. Reduced to a notification. I sat on the back porch that evening, watching the sun stretch across the yard. The garden looked better than it had in years. Something about trimming dead branches made everything bloom more brightly. Funny how that works. I wasn't angry anymore. Just clear. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained something else. Peace, control, and the ability to start again. Brooke had bet I'd fall apart. Instead, I rebuilt quietly, without her. It took 2 more weeks to wrap it all up. Garrett moved quickly, calculated, quiet. We kept everything out of court, because I had the leverage, and Brooke knew it. We met once in person, neutral ground. Her lawyer present, mine beside me. No shouting, no tears, just facts. I slid a folder across the table, printouts of the messages, the booking confirmations, the hidden transfers, the hotel keycard. Brooke didn't look at me. She just signed. We agreed on a clean split. She'd walk away with her car, her business, and nothing else. The house stayed with me. So did the retirement account. She thought I'd never protect in time. There was no alimony, no drawn-out drama, just a quiet end to a loud betrayal. The final signature came via DocuSign. I got the confirmation email at 3:12 p.m. on a Thursday. The subject line read, "Your document has been completed." That was it. 12 years. reduced to a notification. I sat on the back porch that evening, watching the sun stretch across the yard. The garden looked better than it had in years. Something about trimming dead branches made everything bloom more brightly. Funny how that works. I wasn't angry anymore. Just clear. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained something else. Peace, control, and the ability to start again. Brooke had bet I'd fall apart. Instead, I rebuilt quietly, without her.